Well, hey guys, welcome into the Next Man Up podcast once again. I am Mark, he is John, and as always, we are honored to be your hosts for another episode. And guys, we say this all the time, but we're going to emphasize it again today. We are grateful that you have chosen to be part of this community that is about being and raising healthy and godly men. John, I know it's a day after, but happy Thanksgiving.
Well, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to all of the Stanifers.
Well, we're recording this ahead of time, but I know that on Friday following Thanksgiving, when this airs, we will be in Michigan together at my parents' place, enjoying a Stanifer family Christmas together. Since we'll all be in town and different parts of the family go different directions over Christmas, we'll do a combined Christmas Thanksgiving celebration. So I'm looking forward to that.
Do you call that like Thankamus?
Sure.
What do you call that when you do that together?
Christgiving?
Oh, okay.
I guess
Did we just make that up?
On the fly.
Okay.
And I think either could work.
Well, it could. Hey, you may be starting something. Who knows?
Maybe. Christgiving, Thanksmas. Either way. It is Thanksgiving and we're celebrating together. We're celebrating on the show. And we're gonna focus this episode, no surprise, in on the idea of being thankful, of being grateful, of gratitude. And I know this may not seem like an appropriate segue, but probably many of our listeners don't know that, or maybe have forgotten that, John, you're Florida-based.
Yeah.
Just south of Tampa in the Bradenton area. And if our listeners are now putting geography and timing together, Hurricane Ian just blew directly through that area, a little south of where you are, but directly through that area. And so I wanted to get some of your thoughts around gratitude and thankfulness when circumstances are kind of a mess. And you can kind of set the context for how you experienced that storm, because it's certainly different than others. But I wanted to just kind of jump off there and use that as the springboard and just kind of build as we go here.
Yeah, we could talk for a long time about that. And as you can imagine, had a lot of conversation about that in the last, now it's probably 4 or 5 weeks since it actually happened. My experience, I left town the Monday, whatever that was, the 26th, I think it was, of September. The forecast was at that point, was for Ian to come right over Tampa and Bradenton. And if you know anything about the Tampa Bay area, the next time any storm of that not even of that magnitude, probably even storm Hurricane 1 level would be pretty devastating to the Tampa area. It's just not built for it. And so when I saw that, I just said to myself, you're leaving town. And went to Georgia, where my family lives in South Georgia. So I wasn't here when the storm actually went through. But where it actually went through was further south than what they were projecting on that Monday. And so I live in Manatee County, and the county where the most significant damage, which is really sort of hard to say, honestly, but where it came in, I'll put it that way, the Sanibel Island, Fort Myers area is 3 counties south of where I live. So it's pretty further south. But even where I am, certainly there were power outages, trees down, that kind of thing. But we did not have the flooding surge, the coastal surge that they had down, what you've seen on TV, in the Fort Myers area. But even the county south of us is Sarasota County. Then there's two more counties. As you went south, it was gradual, to be expected, but gradual devastation that the recovery is going to be very significant.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a while. Not unlike Katrina type, impact to that particular area. But the whole state, when you think about Ian's path, it impacted the whole state. Well, not so much the Panhandle, Pensacola, that area, but it went across the state. So I'll give you an example of that. In our county, but very east, I lived in West County, just like 5 miles from the Gulf. But our county is pretty wide, rectangular kind of in shape. So further east is very agricultural. And one would think they didn't get much. Nope. They got a lot because of the way the rivers navigate there and the impact of the rain. And one story that will always stand out, I think, to the majority of people in our county is there's a dairy farm in that area that's well known for a whole bunch of reasons. I think their normal head count, I'm going to screw it up now, but it's a couple thousand of head count of dairy cows. They lost 250 cows.
Mm.
I can't even fathom what that looked like, the impact that would have. They've never had anything like that happen, to my knowledge. And it was due either to, flying debris or, those kinds of things, but also flooding to where they just, either the cows didn't survive or they had to, euthanize them. So that story just will always stick with me, that there's so much variety, diversity of the way this storm impacted people. It's not just those who are on the coast that all that flooding literally wiped out their houses or lost cars, or they were in their home and in their car and that's how they died. There's a lot of variations of how people were impacted. And if you stayed or you left, whichever you did, you're faced with some sobering thoughts about life, about possessions, about everything, really, when you sit in it long enough.
What did you, or what have you observed thematically in your conversations with people after the event? In terms of, like, we talked about this before and now we're talking about this after, or watching people process the grief or the trauma from it. I don't mean for this to be too heavy, but like thematically, what are some of the things that you've seen or and have observed after the storm pushed through?
Well, again, I've interacted mostly with people that it didn't really have a huge impact on them personally. So a lot of the conversation has been about response, of course, of what. So we weren't terribly impacted, but we know those further south were. So let's do everything we can, because we are their closest neighbors, you might want to say, to do what we can to respond to their crisis. So of course, there's been a lot of local work, but a lot of people came in, from out of state, like fired. So I drove to South Georgia. Little quick note: I drove to South Georgia Tuesday morning and returned Thursday afternoon, both going up and coming back on Interstate 75. Just power line trucks after power line trucks, heading to South Florida. And even just it looked like random individuals with large, F-350s or any kind of commercial kind of truck with trailers on the back and just pulling whatever they had equipment wise to come down and do disaster relief recovery work. That's been the bulk of what you saw happening for the last 5 months of how do we help people that either don't have a home or they're here and they can't go back because they're still restricted. They can't get back to their home to even see what the conditions are. That was the majority of the work. And two churches here, not that they weren't on the map before, but they definitely put themselves on the map of what it looks like to not only do church kingdom work for people in crisis, but to lead a community, regardless of faith-based or government, to lead a community, to rally people together, to do everything you can to serve those people that have all kinds of different needs. So that's the bulk of what we saw. Now, I will say, because I work at a counseling center, this is not unlike the pandemic in the sense that the trauma happened. It was a different kind of trauma than the pandemic. But any kind of trauma has its long-lasting effect. But the difference in this case is you're in very much react mode for a while, and then it hits you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably still yet to hit some people emotionally. My home, I literally, my life is completely different. How am I going to respond to that? What is that? How do I deal with that loss? Are we talking just material loss? Are we talking job loss? Actual people in my family are now gone. What are we dealing with? And that's going to be a while, and we've gotten those kind of calls at our center. And that was either immediate response kind of work where counselors were going to a shelter to just do immediate response kind of work, to ongoing work now for families who are the things I just described that they're trying to work through.
I read an article just today that I'd forgotten about until you were talking about a couple. I don't know if they were firefighters or EMS professionals, but somebody in that first responder space, two of them from our county have been down there for the last month helping out and serving in who knows what capacity. But there's another anecdotal piece of information to support what you were seeing as you were coming and going. I want to ask you, like, to kind of put your pastor hat on here, or your spiritual hat on for a minute, and transition to gratitude in the midst of pain, difficult circumstances. And like I can think of a number of difficult circumstances that I've had. You can too. We just talked about one that impacted your state and really the whole country in one way or another. But like, talk about how we embrace gratitude in the midst of difficult circumstances like that.
Yeah, I imagine every pastor's been trying to come up with that sermon for the last month, and maybe a series of sermons on that. I have two thoughts. I think one is, and I'm not going to remember the exact scripture passage, like it's Mark 16, whichever it is, where Jesus is talking about the man who built his house on the sand. That story.
Mm-hmm.
My immediate thought, wow, I just realized that's a potential trigger for those who live in Fort Myers. But what you've done ahead of the storm is going to help you during and after the storm. So the life you live spiritually, the foundation that you hopefully have established, and the relationship that you have with God, about the kingdom, about worldview, about material things, all that. That's really what's important to prepare you for the storm. So in Florida, Floridians get this. Yeah, you hear at what is the beginning of May? It's hurricane season. Have you gotten yourself prepared for hurricane season? Do you have the checklist? This kind of stuff. If you live in Florida, you know what I'm talking about. And it's almost, I think, from a spiritual standpoint, how do we prepare ourselves for any life storm? You don't want to think about them. Not really. You don't want to deal with, oh, I just got the cancer diagnosis, or, oh, my wife just told me she's no longer in love with me and she wants to be out. You don't want to deal with that. And hopefully those things don't happen, but life's going to bring a storm.
Yeah.
So setting yourself up spiritually ahead of that, so that you have a foundation to really feel like, okay, the storm may be moving me, like watching what's the guy's name, the Weather Channel guy?
Oh, yeah.
Not Venturi. What? Cantori?
Yeah, Joe, I think.
Yeah, whatever. Oh, so there's this funny. Oh, sorry. No, I got to go down this road. You may have seen it. There's this video of him because he's going to be in the middle of the storm. And actually, there was this Facebook kind of thing. Follow him, Jim Cantori. That's his name. Follow Jim in Florida. And like, you don't want Jim near you because that means that's where the wall's coming or the eye's coming, that kind of thing. But there's this video of him. It's like, dude, just get out, get out. He's like barely hanging on to his microphone. He's half parallel to the ground, and this tree limb is what he's hanging on by his foot. It's this ridiculous thing. I'm not sure why I went there, but my point is firm foundation.
The storms are going to come.
Yeah, have a firm foundation that you don't get blown away. Maybe part of the roof is gone, however you want to use this analogy here. But your life does not have to completely fall apart spiritually in your relationship with God and who you are. Does God love me? Does God care? Because those kind of questions come up, after these events. So that's my first thought. My second thought would be to surround yourself with like-minded people. The community, whatever your faith-based community is, if that's your actual family, whether that's church or whatever that is, stay close to them. And even if they may feel like whatever the storm is, I'll go back to that example of potential divorce in a marriage. That's hard. And at times you're tempted to isolate, or people around you, like, I don't know which, so to speak, which side I'm supposed to talk to, and all that crazy stuff. Find those people. Don't hesitate to reach out and find those people that will be with you and that see you and see you the way God sees you, and ride the storm out, and let them know you need them to ride the storm out with you. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but those are my two thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's good, and it's prompting some additional thoughts on my end regarding how much evidence, how much credibility we put into circumstances as to whether or not I'm good or I'm not, or God loves me or God doesn't love me. I'm blessed. I'm not blessed. We often look at the circumstances as evidence of those things. And that feels to me, using the tree analogy, that feels to me like a tree whose roots are pretty shallow. And when there's water, boy, the tree is great. And when there's not water, the tree is literally withering. Versus the tree who's got the deep roots and recognizes that circumstances will come and go. Storms of life will come and go. Seasons of harvest and overflowing circumstantial benefit will come and go. And yet, through it all, you can be grounded. And I think part of that grounding is gratitude, even in the midst of life's crap. When life throws a Hurricane Ian right to your metaphorical beach and it wipes everything out, there's still place for gratitude. When you're on top of the world circumstantially and everything is breaking in your direction and the tailwind, the wind behind you is just carrying you forward. Well, gratitude is important and relevant and beneficial in that season as well. It's like if I don't know, this could be getting a little carried away. This is on the fly thinking for me. But if you think about the root system of a tree that's grounded and strong and deep, it seems to me that one of those roots, one of those thick, strong roots, is the root of gratitude that allows you to stay grounded regardless of what's blowing around up above.
Yeah, you see a lot of and hear either again interviews on TV or people that you know and come across that they do have that root, that maybe whatever they lost, I'm still here. My family's still here. We can rebuild. The community of Sanibel, which was one of the main barrier islands that just got wiped out. One of the first things I heard was from a financial advisor on the other side of the state who had a connection in Sanibel. And he said, I've heard that they're going to condemn Sanibel. Well, within, I don't remember the amount of days, but it wasn't long. The bridge had already been rebuilt to Sanibel. So, somebody, whoever they is, somebody said, no. We're going to move forward. Maybe we won't have what we had. Maybe it's going to take a long time to get back to what we had, but we're going to make every effort to make Sanibel, sort of resurrect it. And if you don't have gratitude somewhere in the mix there, it's going to be despair, and you're not going to have the drive to rebuild the bridge to get back to the island.
Yeah. Thinking about all those that have stepped in to help and what gratitude looks like in that context. As the giver, I have resources, I have skills, I have opportunity to come help. As the receiver, I am grateful for the blessing of those who are willing to give of their time and resources and energy to help out a neighbor, a stranger, a friend. It just seems like the power of gratitude transcends the circumstance and grounds us. And the other thing, John, it seems like gratitude helps to keep you present in the moment.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that's something that maybe I hadn't thought about until this conversation. But it helps to keep you in the now. And even if it's just a breath, I'm grateful for my next breath. Rather than being in the past or anticipating the future, it helps to keep you grounded in the now. I don't know if that's resonating with you. I can see you nodding your head. What's surfacing for you as you hear me say that?
Well, a couple of things. One, you use the word grounded, or grounding, grounded, whatever. It's very much a therapeutic word. Some would call it centering, either one of those words, to where if you are feeling scrambled or somewhat panicked, that you take a moment to be very present. I am here, state your address, or it's this date, it's this time, here's how I'm feeling right now, just to sit in the moment and not get too caught up in all the chaos and the swirling going on around you. I'll give you two examples of this. One that's sort of the negative, one that's the positive. So I think it's fair to say those in our county who didn't experience it, and maybe even like I did, left town, there can be somewhat of a weird guilt for that when you come back. Like, well, my power's on. Everybody in my cul-de-sac cleaned it all up. And, cable's good, Wi-Fi's good. I didn't really get impacted here. And then you start watching, watching what is going on, and you're like, I need to do something. I just feel like I need to do something. So one of the things I did the next day, just trying to find stuff to, how can I help? I'm not a powered salt dude. That's not going to happen, that kind of thing. So I just through my work, I got a connection with a nonprofit feeding Tampa Bay is the name of it, and which was very big need. Families didn't have the access or power or food. They lost everything in their refrigerators, whatever. There's actually a scene of a refrigerator floating down the Manatee River with all its food in it. It's just crazy stuff. So it was just, you have a chance to sign up and volunteer and help this drive-through feeding 2-hour event happening at the mall close to me. I'm like, I can sign up for that, go do that. And basically all we did, you had two things you could do. You could either help manage the traffic coming in, which was a lot, or be in the actual line to help them pass out the food, put it together stuff. So I was one of the traffic people. And I won't get you bored with the details, but basically we're just lining up these aisles of cars, and they would start in one lane and work their way through the aisle. And then we would refill the aisle and they would start back in the same line, just do this process. We probably had, 300 or 400 cars to line up before they even started serving. It's crazy. And this one lady didn't understand what was going on. She had no understanding of how it was working. And she went a little crazy, literally trying to get out of line because she couldn't stand not knowing. And I was a traffic controller, you might say, that she was trying to get by me and she was causing a problem, a little traffic jam. I'm like, can I help you? What's going on? They're not doing this right. Her mind could not handle, it was too much overwhelming trauma for her. And I said, ma'am, I hear what you're saying, but I promise you are going to get food. And if you would just stay in line, I promise you they're going to get to you. And it's almost, she just needed some affirmation from somebody. She started crying and she said, you just have no idea. I'm from Fort Myers. And that's all she could say. You just have no idea. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure I don't. But I promise you, they're going to get food to you if you would just stay in line. It's coming. I was a source of grounding for her because she couldn't do it for herself. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she just needed someone to affirm her. You didn't waste your time driving up here. This is for real. They're not overlooking you. You are going to get food. And she just needed that. Now, the opposite of that, I had chosen one way of like, you know what? Gas, people need gas. And I'm just going to go sit at the gas station and help a few people by paying for their gas. And which was sort of odd. Had anybody ever walk up to you, can I pay for your gas? It's sort of weird. But I watched with this one guy and he really didn't know what to do with me asking him that question because he was a man of gratitude himself. And I know that because he had what he was getting gas for was 3 gas cans. He wasn't getting gas in his car. He was getting gas in 3 gas cans to take back to his neighborhood to help his block keep generators running. And his sense of gratitude was somewhat overtaken by someone else's gratitude for him.
Mm.
And he was very moved by it. But his statement was, I don't know that I can take this. I don't know how to answer this because I'm the one usually offering this. So it's a very interesting space to watch him just process. It's okay for me to receive. Mark, there's so much you could talk about in these kind of situations because some people, it's really hard for them to receive.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to be the giver.
Yep.
So the gratitude thing speaks in so many different ways. And whether you're the giver or the receiver, or you're the one in panic or the one providing calm, gratitude can work in a whole lot of different ways. And I think when it comes to us personally, I totally support our conversation here that if you can be the one that's practicing gratitude yourself, then you get to be involved in whichever way to calm someone down, to express gratitude to that other person that's expressing gratitude, and to sort of multiply it, you might say.
There's so many different threads that tie in here that we've touched on, and some from other episodes, some we could spin off and do episodes on. But there seems to be a real pull in for that mindset, that posture of gratitude. There's a gravitational attraction there that is healthy and strong and good and contributes to that grounding of being in place, being present, being able to withstand the circumstances as they come and go. And again, we've talked about a number of different things here, but I think we have in our way around this topic, this idea, we've really emphasized that gratitude isn't just, it's not just saying please and thank you and words and manners, although that's how, as dads and as parents, that's how we're starting our kids. It's more of this way of being that we can cultivate and develop. And it doesn't come overnight. Nothing good comes overnight. It's not a one and done. But as we can cultivate this way of being, it has a positive ripple effect on those around us. Being able to step in and give, being able to receive and be grateful for those who are willing to give to you, as just two examples that you brought up. And so let me wrap this up by talking specifically to the dad as you're processing this conversation and thinking about this in the context of you as a father, as a husband, as a man, and what it means for your family. Just three quick thoughts for you. The first is lead by example. Let your kids see it first in you. Maybe that's words, maybe that's actions. It probably is a combination of both. However you're wired to go do and to be in a way that's authentic and consistent with you. Lead by example. Go first. Let your kids see it in you. That's number one. Number two, build a pattern of asking your kids what they're grateful for. Begin this discipline and this pattern of thinking through what do I have to be grateful for? How can I be grateful in this situation? And it's a savvy play too, because as you engage the brain will begin to look for those things, and it becomes a little bit easier as you exercise that muscle and put the brain to work for you. So engage your kids, ask them what they have or what they can be grateful for. And then the last thought is, as you do this, you're building a culture in your family of gratitude, a space, a community. John referred to it as a faith community earlier. You're building this value into your family as part of your culture, part of your family ethos. As you go first, as you engage your kids, that cultural value can play out in the home and help all of you to be more grounded as the storms of life come, as the bounty of life comes. We set aside this day or weekend every year to celebrate bounty, to celebrate blessing, tracing it back to hundreds of years ago when life for many on these shores, for most on these shores, was a whole lot more difficult than life is today. But your Thanksgiving this year may not be a celebration of bounty. It may be a recognition of you've had a storm crash your beach. Whether it is bounty that you're celebrating or tragedy that you're still recovering from, there is a place for gratitude in your life. And there is a need for gratitude to help you stay grounded, to stay present, and to continue to see past the circumstances to a bigger picture, particularly who God is, who you are in God, and what He is doing even in the midst of difficulty. So there's my message to you, dads. I hope you've had a fantastic Thanksgiving weekend. Thank you for giving us a little bit of your precious family time. And I hope we've challenged you to deepen that root of gratitude in the tree that you are building of your own life and in the life of your family. John, any last thoughts before we wrap this one up?
I would just challenge the three things you just shared. It'll probably naturally lead to sharing with others your gratitude. But if you have to actually create action steps to do that with your family, that could be actually quite cool this holiday season to figure out how to share your gratitude with an unexpected person.
Yeah, and be a blessing to others as you do that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good. All right, guys. Well, thank you once again for being a part of this community, for being with us through this episode. We wish you a happy Thanksgiving and look forward to being back with you once again next week. Until then, adios. To send us your comments or questions, you can email us at feedback@thenextmanup.com. The theme music is by Jacob Stanifer at Jacob Stanifer Music, and this show is part of the NRT Podcast Network.